Hello, people. Welcome to another edition of Friday Night Knives. And tonight we are looking at the Kansept Fenrir design. Let me see if we can get that in there. Greg Schaub. There's Fenrir. Nice, cool little bird skull. And as you can see, it is an S35 VN, that Damascus and titanium. Pretty cool. This is quite the knife. Interesting blade. I definitely like the way this goes. In fact, I actually have to grab another one to bring it in. I didn't prepare. But sorry about that, everybody. No editing, no nothing, so if something gets screwed up, it just stays in. But there's a lot of things about this knife that are really, really cool, and some things I don't like so much. But one thing that I'm going to say right off, it has a unique look. As you know, we like the damn nice criteria, design, aesthetics, mechanics, nice noteworthy points, intended purpose, cost value ratio, and expectations, and the nicer if there's a request. Right? Excuse me. That being said, really, really, really like the design of this knife. It speaks good. It has lots of great things that you can look for. But let's get into some of the specifics. First off, standard stuff. It is what they say. It is just under 8 inches long altogether. On the blade, 3 inches of cutting space, just under 3.5 inches of about 3.25 inches to that little point right there. Not bad. Blade stuck. Look at this in millimeters. We're talking a 3mm blade stock. It actually looks like it might be just a slight bit more. So I would actually go with a full 1/8 inch blade stock, 0.125. From the looks of it, it is quite good. Titanium pocket clip, almost deep carry. Deep carry has a nice little pinch point there, so you can actually pull it out of your pocket, getting one finger on there without actually putting pressure on the clip and then pulling it out. Very nice little touch. All right, that being said, let us do some of the referential or relative measurements here. Next to the Spyderco Paramilitary 2, as you can see, it is slightly smaller though. I wouldn't say it's really got any less blade length on it myself. And the Para 3, as you can see, similar hand space, though a bit more on the Fenrir. More blade length. Similar blade heights. Not a full flat grind, high flat grind. All right. Spyderco out of the way here. And now that we have that out of the way, we can go ahead and pull on. Now, it's just a blur. As you can see, this is very similar to blur in size, though it has what the blur doesn't, which is that choil right there. And not just any leak, but a random leak. Once again, the leak shows just, in many ways, just how well it has done. It ages with both size and form factor. But that being said, this is obviously larger. All right, and a couple of more here. Let's see, what can we do to give this... Oh, and the bug out. All right. Good cutting edge, similar to the bug out. No choil on the bug out. Lots more handle space. And the Civivi Elementum. Again, Civivi does... One of the great things about the Civivi is its hand space, right? For such a small blade. It's such a small blade. Its hand space is quite large. Fenrir is about right there. It gets a little bit more out of it with the Fenrir, which is really nice. You know, it definitely, for the size, it's got a really, really interesting form factor. And of course, this is it compared to my Wiener. And as you can see, my Wiener is bigger. Anyway, now back to this a little bit. There is going to be another measurement here in a little bit. I do want to comment a bit. The lanyard pull on this is actually interesting. They could have done a post, which would have been actually pretty nice, but they went for the full hole. So it pulls from the outside and pinches when it does, instead of just pulling from a thing. I don't know if I would prefer the double lanyard hole all the way through as opposed to a pulse, because it does always tend to squeeze, even though there's plenty of stiffness and all that. The post to me would be better. The benefit to the hole is that it doesn't the loop won't tend to drop down. You can tighten it with and all sorts. There's lots of things you can do to mitigate that, but it is interesting. One thing I do want to really point out here, and this is probably for me the biggest downside to this knife. That is a heavy little sucker. That is heavy right there. That's a almost 5-ounce blade. There is thick titanium, no milling in the back end or anything, and it is fairly tail heavy. It's right where that finger groove is approximately where the balance point is. So it is a little tail heavy. I would have preferred a little bit forward. This little spot right here is one of my least favorite parts about this knife. This thing could have been smoother right there. Just, anyway, we're my least favorite. But that's heavy. No milling, no skeletonizing, nothing to reduce the weight without significantly impacting strength or durability. But it's a salt, and it feels it in the hand. It is light because you do have a lot of grip right around the center of balance and center of mass. So it does that very well. Let's get into the whole thing. First thing, design. The design is good. It is a relatively small handle with a widening tail. It's got this little pinky bolster there, so if you do have your pinky, if you have bigger hands, especially since it has this little bit right here, that's really just a useless handle. Like I can put my finger up there, but I don't know. So this right here, which is approximately that same size, gets you, even bigger fingers if I spread mine out a little bit. The pinky thing on there really gets it. The other thing is, with the reverse bolster, it's actually really cool. It's an interesting thing. It gives you space right here where you can have the spring cutouts. Extraordinarily interesting. And this big, tall, flat blade, very thin behind the, very thin behind the edges. I know my calipers have gone to crap, so I go with this way. I can see about 0.5 millimeter, so it's about 20 thousandths, maybe a little bit less, right behind the edge. Pretty good, and it has a very good, very even secondary bevel on both sides. Very, very evenly done. This is really, really well put together. This big blade tucks nicely into that handle. The front flipper is not my favorite. It works great. But the thumb studs are really where it's at. It has good action. One of the things I do like is it doesn't work. And as I go to do it, that thing actually hits. Is that trying to do it on camera doesn't really do it justice. If I do it without trying to do it on camera, that hits right on the thumb. If I'm not angling it so that my thumb's weird and you can see it, I'll put my thumb in there. See, it just hits right where the thumb is. It does not. That little thing is a sharp point. It just doesn't bite. Your thumb really sits in there, and it's smooth. As I screw it up. All right, it's smooth. Hydraulic. It's not fully drop shut. Reverse flick works great. Has really good ergonomics. One of probably the best things about this is the nice ergonomics. In fact, this pinch up on the blade like this reminds me of another one of my favorite knives, the Best Tech Ghost. In many ways, the blade shape on this one and the way it interacts on the top really reminds me of the Fenrir. It is, and it has the same, it's just a smaller blade, but it inches right up on there. It is pretty cool. This is one of my favorite lightweight knives. I have the non-frame lock version of this one, which is my particular favorite. It's just a really nice knife. Has incredible ergonomics and all sorts of grips. I just want to point out the similarities between the two of the knife. And this is a good thing to me. They have a rounded off point here. They have the same bits, the same run up to the harpoon, and then the balancing swedge. As this is one of my favorites, I can tell you right now, this is really cool. And with this tucked handle, instead of being a long, slender, really good, the tuck handle on this, and I'm holding it almost to show you so you can see how it goes. The finger goes right there. This thing tucks back into the blade. And now you have a very, very, very useful, and I don't know if you can see just how direct that line is from your finger down to the point, but I know exactly where that point is. It's just right at the end of my finger. Once you know how far away it is, right? You know where it is. You can get it like this, but if you go back and you need to do it, score cuts, your hands out of the way, way back here. And I don't know, there it is. Way back here for the score cuts. If you're going on a surface, you get quite a bit of space here, right? A lot of finger space by being way back on the knife. You don't have to, of course. You can get up on it. You can stay back here and keep it in, and you get a little. But the choke up for slicing anything, make a decent food prep knife in a pinch if you had to. But the piercing, I mean, this really does make you want to almost do a drilling motion with it. You have it's tough, it's heavy, it definitely feels like it could take it. I know that's not what they're meant for, but it feels like it. Don't do it. That brings me to the aesthetics part of this. This is a cool looking knife. The Damascus, the black titanium, this awesome harpoon, the very, very prominent choil and finger grips. I think it looks fantastic. I think this is a fantastic design that not only looks like a knife, but succeeds in, I mean, other than I don't want to say a family resemblance because Kansept and Bestech are not the same, but other than a resemblance to this style of blade, it's a rather unique design, and I very much appreciate that. I very much appreciate that there's not really other knives that look like this out there. It has a aesthetic that's unique. It has a design that is very well thought out. You have lots of good places to put your fingers that, you know, like almost this flattened dished point on the pivot gives you a place that you can easily index. You can choke up and your fingers are right there. Like the thumb is just, it's, you know, it's there. You can come back and it's a direct line straight to the end. You can choke way back if you need to get some serious power or push in there, and you'll be pivoting right around the center of mass with your thumb and your hand. So you're using your thumb and your hand in the saber grip as a very good pivot. Very well thought out. So yeah, it's very good. The mechanics, I'm trying to do that slow so you can see, even though it probably doesn't. If we didn't get it through before, it works fantastic. It really, really does. Pretty nice. Those mechanics are really hard to fault. And this is one I've used well. Ceramic bearings. It has the stop pin's way back here. It has no internal cutouts really hardly at all or milling to reduce the weight. So it's very much solid titanium, thick liners of that with titanium on the outside. That's a lot of titanium. It's going to work good. So noteworthy points on this is it's unique. It has character, personality, and a lot of good engineering and thoughtful design. That's really it's intended, you know, as part of its intended purpose. Going to do a little wipe of my finger stuff out. There's one knife I have that pulls fingerprints. It's this one. I don't know if you can see it on the camera. I hate it. Anyway, it is intended to be one of those knives. It is intended to be a designer's knife. It is intended to be a high-end, classy, unique thing you can pull out to do lots of jobs. Is it slightly aggressive? Yeah. If you're at Christmas with a bunch of little kids that are scared of knives, or if you're out like celebrating and you need to pop champagne and you whip this little beast out, it'll get attention. Maybe not good, maybe not bad. Hopefully you're around people who'd be like, what is that? That is crazy. I've never seen anything like that, and they're not scared. But anytime someone, especially if there's no reason or for some strange reason, pops a knife out and then flips it, a lot of people think that just immediately becomes very aggressive. It's not. It's the way they work. But some people feel that way. Some people think the planet is a flat petri dish with an ice wall around it. What can you do? All right, but that gets to the cost value ratio. I am not going to tell you the price on this. It's over $200. It's over $200. The value isn't huge there. And I mean that because you can get a lot of the functionality and usefulness of this knife without spending that much money. There may even be still some best tech ghosts out there, S35VN, with a lot of the same benefits that you can get for cheaper, or a little bit cheaper. I actually, to tell you the truth, I want to say this was closer to 300, but I honestly don't remember right off the top of my head how much it was. I should have looked that up before the video. That is me failing to prepare fully for this video, but it is what it is. And so the cost to value ratio isn't there on a practical sense. It's just not, right? That's not what it's about. What it's about is that freaking Damascus, right? That black matte titanium, the slight ring everywhere there's a milling spot on that titanium that gives you a little highlight, right? The black wash gets washed off everywhere there's an edge because it's been polished, and it polishes off the black wash. It's everywhere. The front flipper, it's not my favorite. I really honestly just wish they would, this pokey part right here would give way to the round out. It is not my favorite front flipper device. It can be done. I have yet to master the finger on this way, so the Bic way is my preferred way, which this definitely works. For this knife, for me, it's the thumb studs every time. They do wonderful bits as far as mechanics. But that blade shape, the overall design, the idea that this big blade, like there's some people who are going to see that as really aggressive, and the harpoon shaped blades get kind of that, that whoop, wow, that kind of aggressive swedge, the angle down, the multiple angles, the little up, and then always seems to get quite the reaction and looks. For Lusker, I like it. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying I have the same feelings when I look at it and I go, wow, if I didn't have that swedge, that is a wicked blade, Warncliffe style. And then you put the swedge on and you're like, ooh, it's a little bit taller. For some reason, it looks different. But you take that swedge off. Let me see if there we go. I can take the light off of it. Take a look at that blade. That's what it looks like when the swedge is darkened, right? That's the line of the swedge. That's the cutting blade. That's pretty good. The whole idea, I can tell you for me where the value was, I love the Best Tech Ghost. The way this knife works in general everyday use is pretty nice. This is one of my favorite EDC knives, but because it has a unique aesthetic, it has a unique design, it has wonderful ergonomics, and this harpoon blade that just looks cool. Many of those same things this knife has, and more. You got extra Damascus, you got an extra big blade. For me, it's one of the, in fact, I should say, this is my only Damascus blade. And that blue, that blurple anodizing, absolutely gorgeous. I love the swirlies. I think this knife's great. My problem with this knife, and this is where I go with the expectations, I would have expected, honestly, this knife to have some milling. I just would have. I would have expected some milling in the back to pull a couple of grams out. Maybe instead of it being right at the finger, it would have put the balance point just slightly in front of it, which means it would have been in the line of, instead of above here, it would have been in this angle line. And then it's right here instead of right here. A little bit of milling in the back end would be my request. My expectation would have been that it would be lighter, because here's the worst thing for me about this knife. I really like this knife. I like using it. I like almost everything about it except for one thing. It is too heavy. I live in a place where it's warm a lot of the time. I wear light jeans. It's really hard. I don't very often wear heavy pants, which is, or more often, pants that require a belt, which in order to hold up almost 5 ounces of knife, I will probably need a belt. That's my single biggest problem with this. I expected it with all of that. I mean, yeah, the Damascus, the materials are one thing. S35VN, great steel. It manages to be on $99 knife, $99 knives and $299 knives. It's a pretty good balance of properties. I think it's starting to lose its super steel status compared to some of the new ones that came out, so it's starting to become a mid-tier. But it can definitely work. It has really good stuff. That's my problem, though. I expected this to be a little bit more. There's a lot of people who are going to be like, no, it's good. And hey, look, there's a lot of people that I agree with when they say you want it heavier. This knife will last a long time. That heavy, thick titanium, the titanium all over it, this thing's gonna be kicking for a long time. There's a huge amount of sharpening available on that choil. You can let's see if I can find in the light where there. Boom, there's the plunge grind. There's the life in the blade. And with this being a high flat ground, you can actually, thin this out a little bit by continuing that primary bevel to get a little bit secondary bevel and all that. This is a long-lasting knife, and that 5 ounces, as a general EDC, for me, that 5 ounces is heavy. Now, if I needed to use this knife, and you could, this thing looks purty, but it's solid, it's heavy, it's tough steel, it's got a lot of things going for it. This could easily be a heavy user knife and be just fine with it. And that heaviness is fantastic. If you need to cut things, you need to use the knife to push through material, where instead of having to use all of your muscle strength, the weight and mass of the knife can do a lot of work for you. That is a good thing. That's why you put balance points forward on machetes and stuff like that, where you can where the hardest part is always swinging it, but once you get up, gravity, geometry, and all that other stuff will do work for you. And that's really what it's about. And that's kind of what this thing is. When you pull back on it, this makes more sense. This is where the balance point, right where my thumb is and my finger up there, starts to become really, really, really useful, where you can do stuff where this is essentially like an extent of your finger. And this particular grip seems to work well with this. I mean, it feels really good. It's lively. You can move it, right? It doesn't, when you're here, it moves with your hand, your thumb and your finger. It's a little bit out there, like you can feel the weight in the tips, but it's with so much back here, it balances. It really does. It really, 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 really balances well that way. And there's a lot of people who like that. It's not my favorite part. This knife is geared more towards that, and I would prefer it to be more geared towards this grip or this grip, right? Where I'm choked up and I'm using this on a regular daily basis. And just because I haven't yet, in case I know there's always people who definitely want to know, this sucker has been used. I have not stropped it or anything. Doing it slow for a reason, right? This sucker is, see if I can get it to it. Yeah. Very sharp. I'm trying to go slow so it's a little bit more apparent, but, right. And all that. It's like, whoa, yeah. It is exactly that. It is exactly that. It is very sharp. And that thin blade does wonders. Right? Extraordinarily well done on the sharpness. Very well sharpened, very even. One of the things I always look at for a good job is how even the secondary bevel is. And this one is incredibly well done. It's slightly, let's see if I can even get that. Okay, the tip on this side is ever so slightly bigger than the tip on this side. And we're talking about fractions of a millimeter here. It's noticeable to the eye only because I'm comparing them together. If I had the two of them separate, I wouldn't be able to tell the difference. It is very, 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 very close. And that is fantastic. That's an even well done. The whole mechanics and construction, extraordinary. my request, the only thing I can really say to make this nicer would be some milling out in this back end where it is not necessary to have all this weight, and shift that balance point just forward slightly to be more in line between there and like there. Like if I have my thumb here and I'm up, or if I'm here, you know, now it's down here. I'm using my whole hand to move right here, not right here, which is right there. All right, if I hold it up here, we go down, straight down. See if I can do it. It's going to be somewhere about right there. Right there is our balance point. Right where my fingertip is on the other side. So we can put our hand right there. Oh. All right, so it balances approximately right there. Little bit of weight reduction in the back end, we'll put it somewhere about right there, right in line between the thumb stud or where your finger goes up right here and where your finger is. Right now it's above that, so your hand's behind there. If it was in line with that, it would not only make the knife more lively, but it would produce the right rotations for a lot more power where you are under your power knuckle, where your knuckle doesn't move, but your hand moves around it. That would be my request for the damn nicer. The design, well thought out, incredible. Aesthetics, one of the best looking knives as far as, oops, and I kicked my stupid thing. One of the best looking knives as far as I'm concerned. The mechanics work great. It is smooth, it's hydraulic, it's not completely drop shut. Let's see, I don't want to say that is this thing's fault because I have used it several times. It is only slightly off of center, and I have a feeling since that's being pushed by the liner lock to that side, that it just has to do with, in fact, dun, 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 we can easily, because it is T8 for those who want to know. Oh no, that's already, then that is all tightened up. So if it's loosened up, it isn't noticeable by the screws. So yeah, it is pretty good. The mechanics are great. The noteworthy point is this is a designer knife. It is supposed to be awesome. And it does that very well. Its intended purpose is to be, to my knowledge, a designer knife like that. It's designed to be a collector's. Designed with this Damascus stuff, it is intended to be something that people use once in a while and look at a lot, which, let's be honest, most EDC knives perform that function in the world anyway. You hold them in your pocket, and once in a while you get an excuse to pull it out and use it, which is fantastic. Giggity. Every once in a while you get an opportunity to pull it out and use it. Anyway, but nonetheless, it does that well. What it doesn't do is give you value, like practical value for the money you spend. It does give you other values. There's a lot of beauty here. There's a lot of coolness. There's a lot of cool factor to what this thing does and is, right? That Damascus, you can get all sorts of the full black. There's other types of stuff you can get where that Damascus would be as far as it. I got the Damascus because I like the blue. But this is essentially what it does. It fancies up a really great design. It adds cost to it. It's a fancy, unusual knife, all that stuff. It adds cost to it and, all that sort of stuff because people want it. That value it delivers in spades. A knife that's unusual that if you pull it out, even knife people will be like, oh, you got one of those. Like, and anyone else would be like, whoa, what's that? Like, it has that effect. It has that, oh, wow, a little Post Malone here. Wow. But yeah, so it does have that. And that value it delivers on. If you expect this to be a lightweight EDC beast that's going to be carrying in your shorts pocket and all that sort of stuff, think again. It's not. This is a heavy, solid, durable piece of tool. And a lot of titanium along with the steel. This is a freaking chunk of titanium, all right? This is a fairly big chunk of titanium, and it's really, really built for strength. And that's what this does really well. It is actually a very good user knife. For crying out loud, and I mean this. Give me something like this in like a G10 or carbon fiber with a nested thin liner. Give me liner lock. Give me this in something like CPM 154, or something like that along those lines. I'd even do 14C 28N, or heck, keep a S35N. I know I can get these lower, but reduce this down and give me a lot lower cost option, because what this really is an incredible user knife. This is an incredible daily use knife and hard use knife that could do a lot of incredible tasks. And it has been fancied up into this titanium fanciness. And really, you could do another version of the Fenrir. Call it Baby Wolf or something. I don't know. You could do another version of the Fenrir quite well, where you have it more as a working style knife, where you go to a budget version of this knife. And it would be fantastic. Okay? It would be absolutely fantastic. It would be, I mean, look at that. Look at the size. You give me something that's lighter with all that blade, and you go to maybe a different type. I mean, how more can you say that this thing is wonderful as a design and deserves to be in the hands of more people? Okay, this is the kind of design that could get in the hands of a lot more people and be a great knife for a lot of people who've never experienced something like this. And I think that if there's one other thing besides a little bit of milling and everything like that to get that balance point somewhere, that's what I would also request. Give us a budget version of this. Give us a knife like the Fenrir here for everybody, that everybody can afford, that may not have all the fancy, but it has the functionality, because this is a wonderful user's knife in fancy clothes, right? This is all fancied up, what is actually an incredible user knife. I mean, once again, look at that. I'll take that swedge off. Look at that blade. That is a wicked blade. That is almost a type of Warncliffe, right? Yeah, the tip is in line with the pivot, so we'll just go like that. But I'm looking at this downward. I mean, it's obviously a drop point and the curve, but that could almost be a really wicked Warncliffe with just a harpoon on it. That is amazing. So again, that would be the biggest request. Give me a more budget-oriented, affordable version of this knife, because it's not only worth it, but everyone should be able to experience the great design that this knife is. Similar mechanics. There's plenty of other things out there that do this. If nothing else, there's Kaiser, right? Which, from what I understand, Kansept came from. Or a lot of the people in Kansept came from Kaiser. I shouldn't say that the other way. But yeah, there's a lot of other brands out there that are doing similar great things and allowing it to be in the hands of more people. And I think that's probably the biggest drawback to the Fenrir, is that it is really a user knife, a fantastic hard use and daily use EDC knife put in really fancy clothes. And that's, some people like that. I like this particular one. It was a really hard purchase decision for me. It's not cheap, number one. Number two, I have plenty of knives. In fact, for those who have been a fan of the channel for a while, we're going to have to start doing some user sales where I can get it out there and people might be able to start, because I don't have room for all these knives anymore, you guys. So that's going to start happening soon, where we'll start getting the Buy Me a Coffee and Patreons can start purchasing knives from there. Lots of different ways to do it. So we'll start working on that. But I digress. I do want to give this thing a solid 4 stars, mostly because of the value ratio. You know, it's more of a subjective value as opposed to a practical or objective value. It does fall a little short, but the design is fantastic. The aesthetics, like it or not, it makes you have a feeling, and in some ways that is a hallmark of a great design. You look at this and you're like, ooh, you have sort of a visceral reaction to it. And that is really the hallmark of a great design, in my opinion, and that it does what it has to. And at the same time, you look at it and go, ooh, that's kind of cool. That's kind of different. That's kind of, you know, that's not just your run of the mill little, you know, blade. I mean, that's cool, but that one's just different. And that's really where its strength is. And that's where I'll put it. Like, it's heavy. It could use a little things, but that's all part of this particular variant of it. And really, my request would be either lighten this up or give a more user-oriented version of this. Give me 154 cm in a skeletonized tucked liner, right? Give me a nested liner that's skeletonized and G10 carbon fiber, micarta, whatever. Give me a 154 cm and put it at $60. You'll sell tons of them. Tons of them. This is an awesome knife. And while I know that these expensive ones go out because people want to get them while they can, but here's the thing. This shouldn't be a limited edition knife. It really shouldn't. This kind should, but give me a user version of this. Give us all a user version of this fantastic knife that's more budget oriented, that can get in the hands of a lot of people, because I think it's a great one. I think this is an absolute fantastic knife that could with a couple of adjustments, be in the hands and pockets of a lot more people. And that's really, this one was a hard purchase for me because of a lot of other stuff. And I don't regret it, but it would have been so much easier at $60 to $70 to be like, no, that knife is easily something I can use for years and we'll do whatever. Its value starts to go up as you price it back down, and without, really sacrificing at least integrity of the materials, even if it's not quite as fancy. And that's where I'm going to end it, you guys. This is a 4-star knife. It may sound like I'm a little, waffling on this, but I don't intend to. This is a great knife. It's just expensive. It's heavy, and it's S35 yen. Not that S35 yen is a bad steel. It's just there's so many more out there. This could have been S90V. And it wouldn't have been the hard use knife. This could have been Magna Cut, right? This could have been S30V. It could have been S45. And it could have been a lot of things that would have made it a little bit easier to justify the high price than S35 yen. The edge retention, the toughness is there, and stuff like that. That's why I say you can keep the toughness, so you can keep this thin. Give me something like CPM 154. Give me Magna Cut. Give me something that makes me feel like I am getting more of what I paid for, or make me pay less to get the same essential practicality out of the knife. And I would buy it. I would buy multiples of them, mix and match. I do that already with other knives, so I can get my own style in on them. And I think other people would too. And with that, I'm going to leave it. Because there is no doubt about it. This thing is a package piercer, saran wrap slicer, cardboard carver, and an envelope eviscerator extraordinaire. It does its job well. It is extraordinary in that, and I think it has a lot of value in the aesthetics, as well as a lot of potential for a more budget-oriented version. And with that, 4 stars. Recommendable, but the price range is something where you have to be sure of the subjective value of this. If you like the fancy and you can afford it, get it. It's a little expensive for the material, for the blade materials, but not for the rest. And the craftsmanship and workmanship that made this little bit, only right here a little bit, it's really very, very, very nice. It's very, very good. The steel and the weight is probably the single biggest problems, and those could both easily be fixed along with the price isn't a problem. It's just out of the reach of most people that will ever buy a pocket knife. And then they'll never be able to actually experience the fantastic user experience that this knife can present. That's what keeps it down at 4 stars. So I'm going to leave that right there. I hope you guys like this interview. Go ahead, take this video, watch it twice, comment as much as you like. Be mindful of side effects. Remember to like and subscribe. This has been your Dose of Drew. I am said Drew, and you guys have a great rest of your night.